are back with another episode of Local Chronicles. This time on episode 3, we are going to the Legacy of Destruction sneak peek event. I absolutely love these events, so exciting to go, finally get to crack open some fresh boxes, play with new cards, and of course, support my locals. And yeah, we're fresh off a regional win with Branded, so I didn't really take the time to decide what deck I wanted. I really wanted that playmat, so I just figured I'll take the exact same deck from last week, Branded, which you haven't seen in action by the way, and play it this time. I didn't have my illusion cards yet, but I will next week. So hit the bell and subscribe because the next episode of Local Chronicles is going to be featuring Chimera Illusion. But without further ado, let's jump into round 1 out of 4 for this sneak peek tournament versus Labyrinth. So I open relatively well. I start off with deployment into Cartesia, opening into Alaba with the Serenir as a discard, and pretty much a godhead at this point. I get impermed on the Aluber, but I chain Cartesia, and I have some suspicions about my opponent activating this imperm this way. Grand Guignol and Albion straight away. I'm going for the Puppet Lock with the Quickness. We resolve the lock successfully, but my opponent's actually playing Labyrinth, and for some reason, they scoop and we go to game 2. So, kind of weird up until now, but we continue. And while I'm siding, look at this Sleeve Chief box. I mean, god damn! Use code GALZO5 at checkout. Check out the link in the description below immediately. My opponent sets 2 and passes, and honestly I completely break. I just evenly for 1 set Callbind Cosmic for furniture plays and pass back. I Cosmic the Vecro eventually, it's an Imperm, and I proceed to just beat him down with Serenir. My opponent has 2 Ash in hand and an Arias, but they still let me resolve Branded Fusion. So maybe it's just not their day. 2-0 on to round 2. Round 2 begins and I manage to snag another die roll. Albion dumps Albaz, Cartesia to summon Aluber to search, and I add Branded Fusion. Uninterrupted so far, but I have a feeling my opponent is on Labyrinth because this is what they usually play in locals, so I don't go for the Puppet Lock immediately. Instead, I just go for a massive board focused on destruction with something like a Chimera during the end phase. Make sure I have Mercurier in play. Very safe and old school Branded plays to make sure I can clean his back row and then just attack for game. During the end phase, he activates Kuklock, then Chandelier. I negate with the Mercurier, and now they're only down to 4 cards in hand, which I'm feeling pretty good about. He normal summons Backjack, which means that he either wants to link it off or just go straight into a Typhon. So that means Mirror Jade is banishing that with the Quickness, and he sets 2. I go for the Guardian Chimera play, and yeah, he only has a Kuklock in hand. We go to game 2. Opponent can now finally play, and he goes for Ariana, adds Arias, sets 4, and passes. Yikes, this is gonna be a while to break. Let's see if we can do this. He shotguns Welcome, and I chain High Spirits to make sure I can get some plays going and not lose any important card I have in hand in case he summons the Lovely. Lovely summoned, I activate deployment for Cartesia to make sure I have a proactive play, and Albion dumps Retribution, and I draw 1 card. I need to bait out some cards, so I go for Cartesia effect immediately. He chains Big Welcome, and I unfortunately misplayed here a little bit. I have a Druid's Worm in hand, which I probably should have summoned beforehand. Against a normal deck, I could have chained Druid's Worm to get it to fuse with Cartesia during resolution and then send the Lovely, but right now I cannot respond to normal trap cards with monster effects because of Lovely's effect, so I just have to fuse it for the hand and go for a Grand Guignol. So yeah, now it's time for my opponent to resolve Lovely. He hits a random card from my hand, and now I can dump Branded Fusion to the graveyard so I can snatch it back with Retribution. I go for triple Tactics Thrust, and he chains Ash, which is very good for me, obviously. That was exactly the bait. Retribution gets back the Branded Fusion, and he chains a Labyrinth setup. Now this is getting scary. Labyrinth setup is now going to allow him to set 2 non-Labyrinth normal trap cards from the deck, and now we need to have a little bit of a discussion about what exactly he set. Simultaneous Equation Cannons is sort of like a meme card released in Legacy of Destruction. It's extremely complicated to resolve and understand, and it basically, as the name suggests, requires you to solve an actual equation. So, how does this work right now? By banishing a fusion and 2 Xyz monsters from his extra deck, whose combined level and ranks equal the total number of cards in play in both players' hands and on field, you can resolve the following effect. You can return 2 of the banished monsters so that their combined rank and level equals the level or rank of one of my monsters, then banish all cards I control. Hilarious. So I'm going to explain how that works in practice when he activates the effect. Branded Fusion is resolving, and Lubellion gets hit with an Imperm. Tragedy adds the Aluber. I activate Branded in White, and now it's time for the Equation Cannon. There are 9 cards in play in total. My opponent banishes 2 rank 1s and a level 7 fusion, equaling the 9 cards in play. Then he returns 1 rank 1 and the level 7, equaling 8, which is a level of a monster that I control. And since he resolved the equation successfully, my entire field is now banished. Unfortunately for them, the timing was kind of horrible, so I can just resolve my Branded in White and keep playing. The main play for me is going to be Borreload Furious, as my fusions have been banished, so I attack the Lovely, end phase, add a bunch of cards from the hand and resolve Titaniclad that was dumped earlier this turn, then pop the set card, which is a Trap Tricks that cannot still be activated this turn, which I definitely don't want him to activate the next turn. He starts off with the Ariana, then Arias sets big, and I give the big thumbs up. Lovely comes back, I chain Furious to pop it, Typhon swings for some damage, but I have so much gas during the next turn that my opponent just extends the handshake. 2-0, up 2-0 in the tournament, and we're going to round 3. I'm incredibly sorry for my opponent's cringe playmat. This is definitely not how I roll, but, you know, to each their own. He makes me go first, so I suspect Mekanko or maybe Sky Striker? I go full on, trying to play around as much as I can, and mainly board breakers, so I prioritize Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, which not only locks my opponent, but also puts a monster on the board so they can't evenly or Lightning Storm me, which I'm definitely seeing as an option. Shouldn't be too hard, to be honest. Mirror Jade, Granguignol, and I set up Puppet for a deeper play during the next turn. If things go south, I Puppet before I see any cards, and it's immediate scoopage. We go to game 2. He goes first, and we can get some Ken and Gen action right now. It makes sense because their deck is going to be forced to go first sometimes, and Ken and Gen is such an awesome engine, and also being level 3 works really well in Mekanko. And yeah, he wouldn't let me start seeing that I have a Puppet Lock in my deck, but we'll see if that actually pays off. He combos off with the Ghostrick engine to make an F0 negate and a Holy Lock with 2 set cards. The draw phase Eclipse goes extremely hard, and I can actually keep playing now. Cartesia summon, he chains Spirit Walk to summon another Holy. I know the other card that is set is the one that equips one of my monsters, so I need to get rid of it quickly. I go for Branded Fusion, chain Droplet to negate the Holy, and then chain Cosmic on the trap to make sure I force the activation. He chains it, and now I can chain Cartesia, dodging the trap, and continue resolving my effects. Unfortunately, I don't have any more cards in hand, and I can't make a Mirror Jade the way I want to, but I do want to set up a turn 3 Puppet Lock, which is definitely going to be possible right now. I can't get over his F0 by battle, so I just make sure I get my board state as best as I can to make sure I can resolve Albion the Sanctifier Dragon here. And Fate's cards are flipped by Eclipse, he draws 1, and I negate his F0 that is trying to negate my Albion with Mercurier, and the Puppet has landed. We get a Hari on the field, and I immediately go for a Guardian Chimera here to make sure I won't take any damage. I search for Kit with Branded Lost, and I draw 1. He can crash into my Albion now, and since I have Branded Lost, all I need to do is just normal summon Fallen of Albaz, fuse away with his F0 that it cannot negate my Albaz, and just swing for game. Another 2-0. Up 3-0 in the tournament overall, and we're going into the last round, round 4. My opponent is on Horus Adventure, pretty formidable deck and a big board that I have to carefully break. And yeah, he wins the die roll, but my hand is extremely solid, and I start off with Quem. Quem dumps Albion to unlock Cartesia. The job is now to start baiting out interruptions. Cartesia gets negated by Photon Lord, Fenrir banishes Quem, 1 negate left, and we go for Branded in White, which he does not negate. I thrust for TTT, it gets negated by the Griffin, and now I'm free to activate Branded Fusion. Both Albions get dropletted here, which kind of sucks, so I managed to stick a Lubellion, get Branded Lost onto the field, surge in red and activate it during the end phase to grab Granguignol and a negate with Branded Lost. It's a big main phase 3 coming up, and now I can finally actually set up a Puppet and negate the Photon Lord with Mercurier, and yeah, I Puppet Lock turn 3, which is great. He can still play a bit by tribute summoning Fenrir, and I have so much gas on the crackback, and he basically skipped a turn, so we managed to break the board, puppet lock, eventually clear it out, and win game 1. This is a very good start for the finals. We are on to game 2. He puts up the exact same board. This is going to take another solid hand out of me to break it, but it's not as good this time. So many normal summons, so many monsters, not enough non-engine or just spells. Aluber gets negated, which is rough here. Cartesia to summon and fuse into Grand Guignol, which isn't extremely helpful at this point. Dumping Albion, getting banished eventually by Fenrir. I have to force out the Griffin here, so the only thing I can do is just normal summon Fallen of Albaz and hope that it gets negated. Albion grabs in red, and Cartesia comes back. I fuse during the end phase because otherwise I'm dead. I make Albion into a Mirror Jade and called by Hism Seti during the end phase to round it off. I banish the token with Mirror Jade, which I think was probably a mistake here, just to get Quem on the board with the Titanic Lad I send for cost. I try to Quem here for Cartesia, but he has a Baldrake. That's rough. He starts going into Photon OTK, and he kills my Mirror Jade, which now means I can negate his big galaxy that attacks 3 times with Aluber and blow up the board during the end phase with Mirror Jade if I can survive. And I actually do survive with only 600 life points remaining and a single top deck to save me. And that top deck is Foolish Burial. In any other day, this would have been incredible, but there's a huge problem here. I don't have any more Albion the Branded Dragon in my extra deck, which means that I cannot really extend for game. So yeah, that's a problem. I normal summon Aluber. Aluber gets me Branded Fusion, but I just have to go into a Sanctifier and play. Have good targets in the graveyard. Mirror Jade is there after all, but I'm still facing the Adventure Engine and the Horse Engine live. It would have been much helpful to try to go for like a Furious to pop his back row, but unfortunately I'm so low on life points that I have to shotgun my Mirror Jade to banish my own Aluber and allow my Mirror Jade to get banished. Aluber is returning to the field, but Ding Girsu seals the deal here. Definitely a close call. Could have had it on the crackback, but not enough good cards. On to game 3. I go first with a pretty subpar hand. Quem dumps Albion, Cartesia, and yeah, I get hit with a Ghost Ogre on Cartesia, which hurts, but thankfully I still have a Dark in hand, which is Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, to make a Masquerade with Quem. We're really, really close to time, so that could come in handy. Deployment for Cartesia, so I can get it maybe to activate during my opponent's turn. I set 1 and I pass. Unfortunate. My opponent starts paying up, but this Fenrir and the Horse Engine are just insane advantage. I do have Fusion Duplication to try to protect my board, but I think I get a little bit too greedy here. I want to go for a Puppet Lock, but it's so risky. Going for a Mirror Jade to delay some damage, maybe even a Borreload Furious, maybe just like big bodies that can, push his engine away to make sure I can win in time, would have probably been better instead. But I do go for the Puppet Lock and unfortunately get hit with a Bestial, and this is how the game is played. Sometimes you go for the greedy play and you pay and you get punished. These lines are risky. Can't blame anyone though, this was not my best play. Horses come back and we just swing. Albion gets sent by Sarcophagus, Happy gets rid of Masquerade, Fenrir banishes Quem, and now I take 4,900 damage, which is more than my Masquerade put up so far. He goes for Photon, I bring back Masquerade, he negates the Cartesia in the end phase, and I top deck just a Daruma Cannon. I'm way down on life points right now, there's not enough time. I said it, pass, he goes battle phase, I flip everything face down, but yeah, I top deck Cosmic Cyclone, and it's over here. Overall, second place in the sneak peek, getting the promo for the first time, which is kind of cool, to be honest, not gonna lie. And yeah, if you like this type of content and enjoy Local Chronicles, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell, because next week we are going to Locals again, and we're gonna be playing Illusions. Check out Twitter for the polls to decide what I'm gonna be playing the next week. Thank you so much for watching, hope you enjoyed. Leave a comment down below, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.